By the end of March, early April or something, we had proposals back from several of the clients. Both Hallwell and Connor had evaluated each one and came and presented to us the highest bidder, which turned out to be Anchor Advanced Products. And we had all of our staff managers in the meeting, and Charles made a presentation about what the offer was and some comments on that. And then he sort of opened the floor for us to speak. And it wasn't an area that I had a lot of experience, but I was pretty pleased with the offer that I saw there. But Bill very quickly spoke up and said, "Charles, we think you've done a magnificent job of putting this together and presenting it, but we're just not going to take that low price." Charles looked a little bit shocked, but not totally surprised. Bill had a lot of years of experience in buying and selling companies, and he was a pretty outspoken person when he had a feeling, so he pressed them with a challenge to get the price up. The meeting broke up and each of us went our own way. About a week or so later, 2 weeks perhaps, Charles came back to us and said that he had gotten Anchor Advanced Products to increase the price by $2.5 million, which was a pretty significant increase, almost a 10% increase, so to speak. From that point forward, we were pretty busy all of the time in preparation, meetings, all the legal things that you have to do in order to do a transaction like that. It kept me pretty busy. And obviously I had mixed emotions. It was going to be very difficult for me to sell something that I had worked 25 years or so to create. And I had great concerns about the people, and I had some reservations about the type of management that I saw at Anchor. It turned out that probably was the issue that would cause me the most problem, because their management approach was not well suited to an operation like Midstate. We were extremely customer oriented. All of our operations were sort of adjusted to that way of thinking, and they looked at it a little bit differently, more like a big corporation where they just sort of start down the road and roll over anybody that doesn't seem to want to play their game. So 1994 became a very, very interesting year. We wound up actually closing on the transaction in June or July of, I think it was actually in July of 1994. And Bill and Elizabeth Cox and I had to fly to Boston for that. And we spent the afternoon in the lawyer's office waiting for Anchor Advanced Products to clear up some pollution issue that they have at one of their plants in Tennessee. We had a couple of meetings, and in one of the meetings the issue of the real estate came up. Our leases, the buildings at Midstate were all owned by Bill and I in a partnership called L&D Properties. And in those leases we had a paragraph that said that in the case of sale of the company, that the real estate would be sold to the buyer at market appraisal price. That caught Anchor a little bit off base. They had not paid very much attention to that part of it. They had access to the leases, so they really didn't have an excuse. But I remember the CEO of Anchor telling me that he had not read all of that stuff. He didn't have time to read it. And my response was, well, I had to make time for it. I've read every word of it. So that may have also shown a little bit of difference in our approach to managing it, whether or not you were willing to pay attention to the details. Sometimes it appeared to be that they didn't. But anyway, that turned out to be a pretty good little chunk for Bill and myself. In the case of the Texas building, it had not been in use long enough. It did had a mortgage on it, but the mortgage was payable to Bill, so he cashed out his mortgage, and they had a small amount to pay on that, I think. But the buildings in Seagrove, we sold at the latest appraised value that we had. So as far as the transaction, as far as closing, we got through all of those. We made distributed funds. We had a phantom stock plan for the staff managers. Most of them came out pretty happy with what came out of that. We also had a request, or sort of a requirement, but a request from Anchor that several of us invest in their stock. That was true for me, and for Dean and Carrie invested some, maybe some other people, but we invested in Anchor's stock. Frankly, it didn't turn out to be a very good investment. Pretty much lost that money in the long run. So, but I was very pleased with the amount of money that we were able to get for the company. I still had a lot of sleepless nights over all of the issues that it takes to transfer something that you've been that close to someone else and watch them tear it apart. It's pretty traumatic experience for me, but anyway, we did it.